While environmental justice primarily focused on the equitable distribution of environmental benefits and burdens, climate justice encompasses health security, food security, energy security, water security, human displacement, human trafficking, and disaster management, recognize the intricate interplay between these sectors. So a judge in Pakistan who is looking at climate justice is looking at a whole different world than a judge sitting in the north looking at climate justice, because he's just looking at mitigation, which is a very linear way of looking at climate justice. But I think the scope of adjudication in Pakistan changes when you look at climate justice in the global south. So for the global south, climate justice introduced a significant shift in jurisprudence. It demanded a more sophisticated and inclusive approach to adjudication, one that accounts for multidimensional impacts of climate change across multiple sectors. This necessitates remedies that go beyond retributive measures against polluters and instead adopts restorative and rehabilitative approaches. Courts are now required to design adaptive remedies to protect the rights and dignities of communities disproportionately affected by climate change. So we have to come up with how to come up with a more resilient urban planning, how to come up with a more resilient agricultural planning, climate resilient irrigation plans. This is something that we need to look at. We have a case that comes before us, does not talk about climate change. It might talk about irrigation and water scarcity, but actually you're looking at a climate change issue. There was a case that came to us that said that we want to expand the cement plant in Kalar Kahar, the DG cement case. There was nobody argued climate change in that case. They said we just want to add on, expand the cement plant in Kalar Kahar. And we said, no, Kalar Kahar is a water scarce area, and we did not allow that expansion. But hidden in that entire case was the whole concept of climate change, because it's a water scarce country. So this evolution of adaptive climate justice or adaptive jurisprudence, which just belongs to Pakistan or the global south, unlike the north, marks a pivotal moment in the legal landscape where the scope of justice is expanded to address interconnected challenges that were previously outside the purview of environmental law. We now suggest climate resilient urban planning, agriculture, irrigation, farming practices, etc. So the scope increases. If we examine the climate jurisprudence, we see that it has been largely directional. So what have we done in the last maybe 5-7 years? Coming up with very interesting jurisprudence which has been globally quoted now, especially Asghar Laghari case and some of the others. People talk about it internationally. But what has happened in Pakistan? Has anything changed as far as climate justice is concerned? No, I would imagine. Because all we did was we gave directions. Please do fix this. Please go do fix this. Come up with a new plan to do this. But never figured out whether at all the government had political will, that's the side. Did they ever have the money to do this? Or did they have the budget to do this? We never talked about it somehow. The government never raised this question before us either. So while the courts kept on directing in Asghar Laghari, DG Cement, and a number of other score of cases that we'll do this, CDA was directed to come up with a design which is climate resilient. All buildings in Islamabad should be urban climate resilient. But nothing really happened. The directions are there. They've been quoted all over the world. The jurisprudence is very robust and exciting, but nothing happens on the ground. So debate and discussion at the recent COP29 at Baku brought a fresh perspective of what is really not happening. To address these challenges, to achieve meaningful adaptation or to succeed in a claim for loss and damage caused due to climate change, climate finance becomes an indispensable lifeline. So climate change may be global, but the solutions are not shared equally. Those with resources hoard them, leaving the most vulnerable to perish, said Greta Thunberg. So for a country like Pakistan, which is highly vulnerable to climate change, the availability of robust financial resources is critical for building resilience and protecting its people. Climate finance supports adaptive measures like food defenses, flood defenses, drought-resistant crops, sustainable urban infrastructure, and community-based disaster response systems. Climate finance ensures that individuals can live lives marked by dignity and security, with access to basic needs such as clean water, safe shelter, reliable food supplies. So in essence, climate finance is not just an economic necessity. It is a moral imperative. It ensures that the most vulnerable, who have contributed the least to global emissions, have the resources to adapt, survive and thrive in the changing world. For Pakistan, climate finance is not merely a tool for policy, it is the foundation of hope for the future where every citizen can live with dignity, security and promise of a better tomorrow. So climate finance is not about helping, it is about restoring justice in a system that is fundamentally skewed against the global south. Climate finance refers to what? Where do we get this climate finance? So climate finance refers to local, national or transnational financing drawn from public, private and alternative sources of financing that seeks to support adaptation actions that will address climate change. Its origins trace back to the 1992 United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, which